Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Selling Greenville, your favorite real estate podcast here in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm your host, as always, Stan McCune, realtor right here in Greenville, and you can find all of my contact information in the show notes if you need to reach out to me for any of your real estate needs. And please like, rate, review the show any way that you can support it. If you're on YouTube, leave a little comment, all of those good things. Anything you do like that helps to just support the show and get it out there. So if you like this content, that's an easy way to support, even if you're never going to use me as your realtor. You might be a realtor listening in. Listen, if you're getting helpful content here, support the show very simply. You don't have to support me as a realtor. You can just hit the like button, subscribe to make sure you don't miss future episodes, all of that. Today we have a special guest, Stephanie Worinkeng, who is a professional organizer and owner of a Time to Organize. And we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff related to decluttering, staging, organizing, all sorts of stuff that directly impact people when they're moving, when they're not moving, when they're just living in a home, whatever the case may be, selling, buying, all of those good things. And so I'm really looking forward to discussing all of this with Stephanie. So Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Stan. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to just let you describe however you want. Tell us about your business and what it is that you do.
Great. My business is where I come in and I help people regain their time, their space through organization, and staging kind of plays a part. It's just part of the wheelhouse of what that looks like. And so helping you come into your space, and it could be anything from a garage, an attic, a bedroom, a closet, a kitchen, the whole house. And so looking at the space and saying, what works best for you as the client?
Yep.
How can I come in and arrange things in a way that works for the amount of people that are using the space, arrange things so that you can find what you have and know what you have when you need it. And so that's the basis of organization. And that can look different. There's no one size fits all to organization because everybody is different. And so what might work for me in my household and the people in my house may not work for somebody else because we have different brains. And so my job is to ask the questions and see, okay, what's your end goal for your space? What's bothering you the most and how can we fix it? And so that would be the main focus and the goal, to work with the client, to work with their habits and what their needs are so that they can maintain long term. And that applies to, like you said, just living in the space, or it could be prepping for a move. It could be unpacking and setting up your new house after a move. And so that's what that looks like.
Yeah. So you said that, you have to tailor that to different people's personalities, lifestyles, et cetera, et cetera. But are there some like general principles that apply across the board?
There sure are. And a lot of what I will do is I will come in and walk through your space and talk through what's your end goal first. And it might be, okay, there's drop zones in my kitchen. I always have paper here. That's a good example. And so I would ask, okay, well, what tends to come in? Where's the hang up in, why it always lands in that drop zone where paper is. And so part of that is usually it's the countertop right next to the door. It's where I go to look for stuff, but it's always a mound because I don't know where it can go long term. And so it's talking through, okay, for that one, it might be kind of a two-step process where, okay, main goal is I don't want it to end up on my counter. I hate it on my counter. Great, let's look for a nearby wall and some wall-mounted cubbies, and one per adult in the household. Like, this is mom's cubby, this is dad's cubby, and then there might be one for the kids. And so looking at that, where you're able to then have a temporary situation where it comes off the countertop, goes into those cubbies on the wall. When they get full, or maybe at the end of the week, that's then going through and culling through, this is trash, this is my long-term storage in, a file box for each kid in, the top of their bedroom closet or the top of my craft closet, whatever that looks like. And so coming up with a system to avoid, the parts that is the pain point.
So are you anti-junk drawer?
I have a junk drawer. It is an organized junk drawer, though.
It's not junky.
So it's not junky. It's pretty organized. But when people think of a junk drawer, it's kind of like pens and pencils and tape and
Yeah.
scissors and, maybe the quick grab papers that you need right away, but you clear off your countertop really fast. And so my process would be, if there's things you reach for all the time, create a home in that space where you go to grab it right away. So it might be utilizing some containers within that junk drawer. And hey, this is where scissors go. This is where tape goes. This is pens, pencils, and glue. And then there is one sectioned off area for mom to put papers. I just did this with a client this week. They had some great drawer storage in their island right by their art station, or their kitchen table, which was the art station. So we set up 2 deep drawers on that island for the art for the kids. And then the top drawer was mom's drawer because she hated the stuff accumulating at the bottom of the island. So there's the habit of she comes in and drops the papers at the bottom of the island.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just work through, okay, real quick, as it's in your hand, throw out whatever is trash, and then whatever's left, that can stick on the island. But by the end of the night, reset it into that spot in the drawer. And then there was her personal stationery and her personal pens. And then we had the luxury of a secondary drawer that was the general family junk drawer of the scissors, the pens and pencils. I think there were some just general tools to grab, like a tape measure. Everybody needs a tape measure.
Yep.
Those kind of things. So working around those habits and not reinventing the wheel, because it takes at least 21 days or more to form a new habit. And so if you can work around what you already do, you're then able to maintain it long term. And it feels more natural and
Yeah,
easy.
absolutely. And I mean, are you coaching your clients on how to maintain this
Mm-hmm.
decluttered, organized
Yes.
environment? Like what does that look like?
Yeah. So if we're working on how you already do it, then we can set up a system. There we go, for the homes for things that you're keeping. And then I'll recommend, either depending on how often you use that space. So a junk drawer is pretty often. At the end of the day, as you're putting in the new things, kind of resetting it. So if you see something out of place, put it back into place. We also have
I would
either
love for that to
weekly,
happen in my household.
it'd be
I
nice.
I bought something like 20 scissors the past year
Hmm.
because there are elves or something in my household that keeps taking scissors, and I will find them
Hmm.
outside, rusted out. I
Sure,
will find them in the garage, wasting away. And so, anyway, I just keep
yeah,
buying more and more scissors because they're not
sure,
being reset.
sure. I mean, that is the challenge with working with everybody in the household. There's certain people who are more on board with the process and certain people who are less on board. And
That's
so
right.
that's a part of life. And that gets into like a family reset, that gets
Sure.
into mom and dad resetting. I'm one of 5 children growing up. I was homeschooled all the way through. I was the neat freak of the family. And it's funny you mentioned scissors. I have 5 pairs of scissors that live in my house now because we never had scissors growing up. And so I discovered, oh wow, I'm an adult now and I can buy my own
There
scissors
you
and
go.
tape. Scissors and tape. So there's a spot for it. We reset it. Um, everybody is a little different. I'll admit, I'm probably, because that's my natural tendency, I'm more focused on let's reset and put things away. So my kids have been trained from the very beginning that that's where things go.
Yep.
And, with working with them over time, it's been a process, but they're pretty great about helping to reset. And so one of the things we put in place for maintaining systems, this is after the sorting process, this is after creating a home for everything, but setting the timer for 15 minutes. We called it the 15-minute warning growing up, but we attached that to a fun thing at the end, like a reward. And so growing up, at the end of the school day, 5 kids being homeschooled, we would set the timer for 15 minutes, and you had to put your books away and make sure your bed was made if you hadn't already done it, things like that, the little general
Yep.
chores that were doable in 15 minutes. And then everybody as a family was doing it. So it didn't feel like one person was just
Hmm.
stuck doing all the work. And mom went through and monitored and checked everything. And we'll do that. I'll do that with my kids. And it just tends to work because you don't feel like you're doing it by yourself.
Sure.
And so that would be a good maintenance
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
kind of system set up. And then we would do, where the reward was, we did tea time. So my mom would read us like a chapter out of a fun book like Laura Ingalls Wilder, and we would have a fun snack. So we attached it to the fun snack. And then there was, if you didn't do your chores, you wouldn't get TV time. And that was a big deal. So things
Yeah,
like that.
absolutely.
It doesn't have to look exactly like that, but that it might be, I'm going to reset myself and then I'll get my afternoon cup of coffee because I love my afternoon cup of coffee. So working that into your life, or it might be, something you do at night, you do a little 10-minute reset before you enjoy your cup of tea or you watch your show, whatever that looks like.
Yeah,
But to
absolutely.
answer your point, I want to circle back a little
Mm-hmm.
bit to the general just the basics of going through and organizing. While we are working around habits of everybody, so that can look a little different, there is a process to organizing. And that will look like going into the zone. What's the end goal? Okay, I want my countertop clear. And then there's a sorting process. There's grouping like items with like. And then there is figuring out what are duplicates that can go away. You're better able to make more decisions, more informed decisions, if you know where all of what is all in your category. There we go. And so you group like with like, and then you decide what you're going to keep, what you're going to give away, what you're going to throw away, and what will go into another room or zone based on how you use it. And so that's a very good general processing for organizing and getting a place reset. Once we go through dividing those categories up, you're able to then go, okay, is it trash? Is it donation? If it's donatable, if you would go to a thrift store and use it or buy it from a thrift store, great, it's donatable. If you wouldn't touch it because it's broken, because it smells or ripped or stained or whatever, that's trash. And so that's a good process in looking at that. The things that you're keeping, that's where you figure out, how do I use it? How often do I use it? And then where is that space that it's going to go? I like to think about putting things away based on A, B, and C storage. So if you think of a kitchen cabinet, it usually has like an upper kitchen cabinet. It usually has 3 shelves. And so the lower shelf is your A storage. The middle shelf is your B storage. The top shelf is C storage. And it might be that A storage are, water glasses by the sink because you're getting at those multiple times a day. C storage is kind of, okay, those are my, to-go cups for water. That's maybe once a day, a couple times a week. C storage might be, I need to pull out a stool because I'm short personally. I need to pull out a stool to grab that. So that might be, in top shelf storage is Christmas dishes, those kind of things. So, and that's how you can kind of look at anything around your house, around your garage. How often do I use it? Make that the most accessible. Things that you use together, put them away together. Maybe they're not on the same shelf, but they're at least in the same zone. And so that's kind of a good general rule of thumb of how to think through, okay, I've got this, full area that I want to tackle. How do I even begin?
Sure.
So keep, give
So,
away, throw away items that go to another room or zone.
okay.
There you go.
Yeah, that's helpful. So, what are some of the issues you run into? And could be any sorts of issues, but when you're assessing a home, when you're trying to help people through this, what are some of those issues that you run into?
Sure. I think there are things like being able to figure out. So one issue is processing through when you're dealing with somebody working through grief. Maybe it's the loss of a loved one and you're trying to figure out going through things. It's definitely working through the emotions of things like that. That has definitely been a challenge over the years. And so it's that process of working through. Sometimes it's feel free to tell me your stories. Sometimes it may not even be through the loss of a loved one, but it might be, just, oh, this triggered a memory that I didn't even think I would have when I was sorting through socks. But it might be, oh, okay, well, tell me about that story. And sometimes even the client being able to listen to the story or be able to get the story out of their system and let me listen to it. That has been something that's really helpful. And that just goes with the process of it. Or, oftentimes I'll tell them if they, maybe your budget doesn't allow for me to come through and do your whole house with you, but you might have, a buddy, somebody, a good friend or a family member who's really good at organizing. And it might be that they go through it with you and they're almost like a body double. And so they can listen to the stories and you can say, okay, that was great. We're going to move on now and let it go. Another challenge that I have seen is you'll often do, there's a lot of the easy sorting, right? Obvious trash can obviously go in the trash bag right away. I know that this definitely stays in the zone that I'm using, but usually without fail, anytime you dump out a junk drawer or a dresser drawer or whatever the case may be, it might be, a toy bin or something. You can make those quick decisions, and then you're left with a pile of, I don't know what to do, but I can't throw it away.
Right.
And so that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Yep.
And that happens to be one of my favorite parts of the project, because somehow God wired me with a brain that can look at that and go, okay, let's work through some questions. And so that might look like, what is keeping you from being able to donate it or trash it? Tell me why. Justify to me why it has to take up your valuable space, because space is a commodity, just like anything else, just like time, just like money.
Absolutely.
What justifies you keeping that? Why can't you get rid of it? And so based on that reason, then we go, okay, well, let's think backwards to how you will use it. When you need to find this thing, where's the first place that you think of where you would go to look for it? And it might be something incredibly random, like this was in a toy bin, but it actually is used by the back door because it's an outside toy, or it's always outside. Okay, well, let's store this in the garage, or let's store this, wherever that might be, rather than in the toy room. I'm just picking on some examples.
For sure.
But that would definitely be something that I see as a challenge in looking at with clients, is what do you do with that last little, I like to call it the wiggly wigglies of stuff that's just left. And so what, justify to yourself how you would use that and why you can't get rid of it.
Sure. So. Yeah, I mean, I can see that being a challenge. We've a few times in our household, we've done like a purging, decluttering kind of thing. And most recently, so we were living at our home that we lived in prior to where we are now. It was several hundred square feet larger than where we are, but then we also had a several humongous unfinished storage spaces as well. And so even though we're in a pretty big house right now, it's about 3,200 square feet with a 600 square foot garage, we had to purge quite a bit. It was just like every space was a little bit smaller. Closets were smaller because we moved from a newer house to an older house. My office, where I am right now as I'm recording this, is smaller, like substantially smaller. Our basement is smaller, like literally we have less storage. And I had to really make some hard decisions there going through stuff, because it was like, man, we accrued a lot of stuff when we just had basically more storage than 4 people would ever need at our old house. And some of those decisions were just like, I don't really want to get rid of this, but I've not even looked at this in 5 years. Like, why am I why am I going to be held hostage by something that I've not even interacted with in 5 years? I'm only interacting with it now because I'm moving,
Right. That's usually a good sign.
It's easy to get kind of fixated on the item and not really think through like, why am I holding on to this item?
Sure. And that's something I'd love to piggyback on, is that's definitely a challenge I find with clients, and that's where I would just say focus on, okay, if you're going to keep it, it's a good item. Great. I've got several people that I've worked with and they have excellent taste. And so they're very nice, an item's worth a lot of money, some like in closets, for example, you've got clothing. That's a really good example because everybody's got clothing. What a blessing. We live in such a culture where for so long we were told we need more stuff to be happy. And so now we're dealing with kind of that aftermath of, well, we have stuff, but then we're so overwhelmed by stuff. And so if your end goal is to be able to enjoy life, to know what you have, to find it when you need it, when you're so overwhelmed and you can't even find things, that's a good indicator of, okay, well, let me relook at this. Let me see where, I might have, even if you do have the storage space, if you don't interact with it, like you said, for a couple of years, or you don't use it on the regular basis, is it even worth hanging on to? How easy is it to replace? What's the reality of, I often say, if you haven't used it in a year, if it's clothing and you haven't used it in 2 winters or 2 summers, that's a really good indicator of, I don't think it needs to be taking up my valuable real estate of space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it
That was the
doesn't
big one
work
for
to
me when
help
we
me.
moved was I had to get rid of a lot of clothing because I
Sure,
had just kept accruing and accruing and was like, well,
sure,
I've got space.
sure,
And then I found that
sure,
there were some things that I just hadn't worn in forever.
sure, sure.
Some of them I didn't
And
even fit anymore.
yeah, and there you go. That's a good one since we're on clothing and they don't even fit. There's sometimes, especially, a mom who has gone through having babies. And so there's always that goal of, getting back to the certain size or,
Hmm.
anybody, I want to get back to that certain size. These are my
Yep.
goals. And so there's nothing wrong with having a few pieces of goal clothing that you really love. But in looking at that, maybe a whole wardrobe, there's something to be said about when I get to the point of wherever I want to be, won't I want to reward myself with a new fun wardrobe? And so that's a good indicator of at that point, I'll probably rebuy things anyway that I love. So looking at it as would I wear it now? Do I love it? If I were that size, would I wear it now? That's a good indicator. Will I wear it when I'm even at that point,
Hmm.
or is it like a 10-year-old item that I probably wouldn't even wear if I fit into it?
Sure.
So and then setting yourself up for it's great to have a few gold pieces, but that not be the focus.
What should
Only keep your favorites.
what should people do with their wedding dresses?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um,
I've had debates with my wife over this one.
sure,
That's why I asked.
sure. It honestly, Stan, it kind of depends on the client. I've known some people and they have just resold it because they're going, I'm never going to wear that again. And it's in pictures. And is it worth saving it for 18 years for your daughter to possibly marry or get married in it? Will she even want to,
Or fit it
So
or whatever.
more than likely, no. So those are good questions to ask. I like the aspect of if it's something where it's sentimentally and you just have to have pieces of it. I like creative ways of maybe it's cutting it up and having it made into, a christening dress for your baby
Hmm.
or, maybe a few handkerchiefs for
Hmm.
different people out of parts of that dress to carry around a bouquet for, your daughter, your granddaughter, whoever it might be.
Hmm. Hmm.
But thinking through so you're not storing the whole huge box that most people, when I've come across these boxes, they're in the top of a closet. They're kind of musty and not as much fun. And, it takes up a lot of space. Now,
Yeah.
I won't, I'm not out to just make people get rid of stuff. I'm out to help them think through how valuable is this? Am I
Right.
really going to use it? Is it really worth it? And there are some memory things. I mean, I do have my wedding dress. It's not preserved. I cleaned it real well. It's hanging in the back of a closet. More so for me because personally, growing up, the granddaughters in my family, we went over to my grandma's house and we played dress up in her wedding dress. And so I have fond memories of playing dress up there. And so it's not really necessarily even preserved for using in the long run for my daughter to wear for her wedding. It's more as I have my daughter, as I have her friends come over, we have tons of little girl cousins in our family. It's more to be able to enjoy and be played with and used. And so that's where I justify the space that it takes to take up, my wedding dress in the back of my closet. Um, for some people, they're able to let it go. Great, go ahead. If you can resell it and kind of get some money back for it, awesome. Use it towards a fun experience. But it's good to think through what are some alternative ways of using that dress for special occasions rather than maybe saving the whole entire dress because
Sure.
likely the percentages of the daughter even wanting to wear it are pretty slim. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that
Interesting.
answers the question.
It does. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I have no agenda with these questions.
sure,
I just want to hear your
sure.
answers. Um,
Oh, one big one that comes to mind. This is sort of off of something like a wedding dress. I've been coming across this a lot lately with clients, and it's what do you do with all these cool T-shirts that hold a lot of memory for a lot of people. A lot of people
mhm.
have a lot of T-shirts. It's an easy thing to buy when you're traveling. It's from sports or whatever that looks like. My favorite thing that I have found across the board to do with T-shirts is to put them aside, and when you accumulate enough. there's people on Etsy. There's people that will make a t-shirt quilt.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
can send them off and have one made. You could get crafty and make one yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I actually made one when I got married, and I helped my older sister make one when she got married. And we took t-shirts from us growing up, our husband's t-shirts. I think I got my husband's the shirt he was wearing on our first date. He'd worn out the elbows in it, but it was like, that's what I remember him in. And it's actually in the very center of my t-shirt quilt that I have.
Oh, that's fun.
And it's just really fun because it's a fun way of using those t-shirts, but
Mm-hmm.
it's made into a new thing that my kids can pull out the quilt and use it, and we cuddle underneath it. And it was a fun thing to make in preparation for getting married and stuff. So that's just like, you don't have to do it if you're getting married. It could be for anything. It could be maybe at the end of the high school career of your kid, you take those t-shirts from, over their school years and you give them a school t-shirt quilt. But that's a fun way to use something like t-shirts that a lot of people can accumulate. And
Yeah.
now, the thing that I would say, and this goes across the board too, is we have containers, right? The definition of a container is to contain something. And so there's a limit implied with a container. And so give yourself a set container, whether it's one box. And if the t-shirts won't fit into that container for the long-term t-shirt quilt at the end of 18 years, you need to make some choices between that. So it's not overflowing or going into, another container.
Sure.
So that would be something that I would say to be careful. I'm not against keeping things for the memories or whatever, but there has to be a way or a strategy for you to enjoy them rather than them sitting in a cardboard box in the attic where you don't even touch it.
Absolutely.
So that would be something that I would say, coming up with some kind of way to enjoy it.
So for search engine optimization purposes, I need to mention Marie Kondo in here.
Uh-huh.
What are your thoughts? In full disclosure, I heard about her and her method, whatever it is, for the first
Mm-hmm.
time. I don't know. It was several years ago. I've
Sure.
never read any of her stuff, but I know
Mm-hmm.
people that have been impacted by her
Sure.
philosophy. So, do you use
Mm-hmm.
any of that? Do you agree or disagree with any
Mm-hmm.
of her method?
Mm-hmm. So here is what I will say. I agree with some points. I disagree with others. And the way that I will describe this, we've got Marie Kondo, we've got the home edit, we've got lots of different shows like that, organization shows. There's the gal who does the clutter bug scenario. And I love it because what has happened is when I started this business, when I was 18, I was out of high school and I started this business, and I did all kinds of networking, speed networking, networking groups, and half of my elevator speech, 30 seconds of my 60-second elevator speech, I would have to spend, what is an organizer?
You're right.
What do we even do?
Yep.
And now, because of the shows, because of the methodology, a lot of people now are more familiar with a stager, with an organizer. And so
Absolutely.
that has been a huge point of the exposure that it's given to, hey, maybe we don't want to be overwhelmed and ruled by our things. Maybe we want to think about what our homes look like, what our spaces look like. And so I love that aspect of, all these shows of Marie Kondo. A lot of what I have seen from how she does things, it's more towards the end of the aesthetics, making sure things look pretty in the end. And I don't agree with that necessarily.
Hmm.
I would be more on thinking through, what are your habits? How do you use it in your space? Does it even fit in your space? And I wouldn't go for how things look, because
Hmm.
it may look neater to store your t-shirts folded the certain way that she does and fanned from the top so you can pull them out that way. That works great for me because I'm very visual and I love the color system, but that might not work for somebody who is going in to fold their t-shirts. They may not fold their clothes. I've had clients, like, they don't fold clothes. Folding clothes is the worst thing to them. They're never going to do it. So
I roll my
folding,
t-shirts, and
right,
most of my clothes
sure,
are hung, but yeah, things
sure.
like t-shirts, I just roll them.
Sure. So that's a habit difference, right? I actually personally hate hanging things on hangers for my own clothes. I don't have very much, I have like this much hanging space. No, that's probably an exaggeration. Like this much hanging space is more accurate.
For
But I don't
for
love
those
that.
listening, she has about 2 feet of
There
hanging
we go.
space, is what she depicted with her hands.
There we go. There we go. There we go. So about 2 feet of hanging space wide. That is a decision that I've made, but I can see it. I know what I have. Most of my stuff is folded, but I happen to really enjoy folding clothes. But not everybody's going to love to do that. So that would be my main difference in looking at, Marie Kondo's methodology
Less of a
is
focus on
I would,
aesthetics and more of a
right,
focus
less
on
because on the functionality for
right.
that person, for what their needs are. Same thing like the home edit. A lot of now recently they've done a shift. They've done like a different show, which was awesome. They actually did kind of like the complete home makeover, and it was so cool because they would take this whole house. They have the resources. They took a warehouse, laid out the whole house by room so you could see everything and help the people reset it. That was a recent show that I saw that they did. Some of their earlier ones, they were more focused on it was great because it was organizing, it was helping people. I felt like they had a lot of focus on using product, and that was where I ran into a lot of people bringing up, oh, I want a house like the Home Edit or something, and it was so focused on product and not necessarily what worked for the client.
Mhm.
um, because obviously the Home Edit, I think they were sponsored by a product store. We won't name names, but I
Sure.
think they were sponsored by that. And so something that I've run into, to be organized, you don't have to have all these matching bins. You don't have to have things that are perfectly set out in the Instagram worthy thing. That's a type of organizing that gets a lot into my like micro organizing and really having set containers and things for certain items. But that takes a lot of upkeep, which a lot of people aren't prepared to do on the regular. So then the system falls apart, even though you've invested in all these beautiful containers.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is that sorting and purging first, figuring out what you're using and putting those things away into the storage space. And so you utilizing containers. But I mean, you could use cardboard boxes to organize and it would be organized. It just might not look, Instagram worthy,
Right.
with beautiful clear containers with all the matching labels. So yeah, that's something that I have found just over time. Really working with the client. What are your habits? What will you use? What are the people using the system? What does that look like? Rather than just going for aesthetics. Um,
So this that was all a great answer, by the way. I don't want to change gears too quickly, but I do have a question that's been kind of burning for
sure.
me here. So
Okay.
in
Hit me up.
the in the real estate investor world, storage units are a very popular
Ooh.
investment right now. And
hmm hmm
the thinking behind that is that housing affordability is deteriorating.
hmm
The average first-time home buyer is 38 years old.
hmm
Um, and so when people are buying their first home, it's going to typically be smaller
hmm
than what they really need, and so
hmm
they're going to need these storage units in order to be able
hmm
to store away some of the things that they have because their home is not going to have a garage and adequate
hmm
closet storage and all of that.
Sure.
That's the theory. I've heard that. And I mean, you know, we can already see storage units are a huge business even without factoring in
Right.
all of that. So it start bring this all back to what you do in organization. Um, what is your feeling towards storage units, and is there an appropriate time for them,
Mm.
or should there be an appropriate time for them?
Sure. I think storage units can be a really great tool for temporary solutions. I would not use a storage unit long term because I was talking earlier about ABC storage. That can apply to, I've used that in the illustration of, a kitchen cabinet, for example, but that could be your whole house. So for example, usually you're in your kitchen for multiple times a day. You're eating at least 3 meals, usually snacks. You're in your bedroom at least one time a day because you're sleeping there. And then your living room and your garage, those kind of things. You're in those rooms depending on like how many times you're active in there. Okay. So you've got ABC storage. And then if you look at something as far as storage for things that you're keeping as a storage unit, which is offsite, that's going to be a CC storage, because to access anything from there, you have to get into your car. If you don't have a truck that can haul things and they're bigger things, you have to, figure out a way to transport whatever it is. And so I only like those for a temporary solution where maybe you're in between houses, but you have a game plan for a house coming up, or maybe you're doing a remodel. Of course, you're going to need a storage solution that
Sure.
way.
Yeah.
But as far as long-term, just having it to keep it, I would strongly, I don't like them for that purpose, because what you're doing is throwing away money on things that you're not accessing regularly. At least in my experience and what I've seen and how people use them for like long-term extra storage. That is something I would put a goal of, okay, if it's full to the brim, and usually it is full to the brim, it's not organized where you can access things easily. So
Right.
it also becomes something where you've got all these steps against you to go and use whatever is in that storage unit. You have to pack up and go there. You have to go out of your house and go get it. You have to deal with the clutter. Oftentimes, if you're trying to even find anything, you have to shift things out to access things. And then before you leave, you have to pull it all back in. And so I would, if you're going to do a storage unit, I would have an end date in sight so that you're not throwing away money. Because if you just use it as extra storage, you're paying money to store your stuff that you're not using more than likely
Sure.
every single month.
What if you're a serial killer and you need a place to put the bodies?
I think you've got different problems at that point.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that was a personal question. I'll just move on from that one. How do you respond to people? By the way, FBI, I'm joking. How do you respond to people when they say, I don't have enough storage? I need a storage unit, or I need, my shed to put stuff in,
Sure.
from the house.
Sure.
Like, how do you respond to that?
So this is, again, going back to the philosophy of, do you know what you have? Can you find it when you need it? Oftentimes when I hear, I don't have enough storage, my closets aren't big enough, my spaces aren't big enough. I think in some cases that can be true. Like if you're in a New York apartment or something of that, that's a whole other level where, yes, okay, space is tight. But you look at people who live in a New York apartment, and they live with a lot less things, more than likely, right? They may have storage somewhere else, but usually they've condensed down to, instead of, a 6-person place setting, they have 2 sets of place setting, for example, 2 sets of dishes, whatever, because they're not having people over. They're going out and doing things.
Right.
They may not even have a kitchen in a New York apartment, for example. They may eat out all the time or something, whatever those may be. So when I hear I don't have enough storage, usually what I'm thinking in my head is, I think you have too much stuff. And so I would look at it as, you can't, unless you're like on track to do a whole big remodel on a bigger house or whatever, and you see that, I would encourage people to look at, rather than your storage, whatever it may be, being a limit, like a downer, and I just don't have enough, look at it as, okay, this is what I have to work with. How can we make the items that we have fit in here so I can use it and find it when I need it? And so a lot of my approach would be to encourage the client, well, let's look at everything that you have. Let's pull it out. Let's group like with like. Let's figure out what are really important to keep. And let's figure out what can be let go, what can be donated, what can be trashed. And oftentimes, usually when we do that sorting process, people always get rid of stuff. Even some hoarding situations I've worked with, we've gotten rid of stuff. And so if you look at your space as your container, and that's your limit of what will actually fit, work with what you have and approach it from a standpoint of plenty rather than a standpoint of scarcity. If you can turn that mindset around into, this is what I have, how can I work with it? Instead of, oh, I don't have this and I don't have that. I think just your whole persona, you tend to be more thankful and go, okay, how can we make this work? And the approach that I would have is kind of like, you've already gotten rid of trash donation as much as possible. So you're looking with what you've got left and you go, okay, well, what are the most important things? Are there things here that repeat the same? Are there one-use items, or can they function as multiple use items? Okay. And you might need storage for For example, if you are a family with a lot of kids and there's a lot of clothing that needs to happen, you might need some storage, but I would limit that into, okay, I can fit, 6 bins of clothing in my garage. That's it. I can't keep more of that excess clothing than the 6 bins. And I'm talking
Mhm.
like a lot of kids. My sister has 7 children, and so she has a lot. So I realize sometimes you really do need more space, but it might not be affordable to upgrade to a larger home. And
Sure.
so in that case, just look at, can you be creative? Like if you don't have a pantry in your house, okay, you might need to dedicate a few kitchen cabinets, and that is your pantry, and carve out space. And that might be less disposable containers, less Tupperware, less drinking glasses, less mugs. And so if you can downsize in each category, that does actually free up some space. And then you can distribute that into other areas so that you can allow for a little bit more. It
Yep.
might be you don't have again, a pantry, but you have a open wall space. Okay, so put a bookshelf there with some containers, and that can be your quick grab pantry stuff that is in cute containers, so you have to keep it neat. That helps you stay on top of it. And then you've got 2 other cabinets that are your secondary storage. That also means buying less. So that might
Novel
help you with
concept.
budgeting. That might help you with just using what you actually have because you're limited on space. And so the short answer to all of that long way around, bunny rabbit trails everywhere, would be maybe look at it from a point of, this is what I have, how can I work with it? It's helpful for me because it helps me set limits given the space that I have to work with.
Yeah,
So that would be
absolutely.
the thing. And I would, in general, unless you're doing like a renovation or a temporary move situation, I would not have a long-term offsite storage situation going on. I would try and get out of that as soon
Yep.
as possible and just use whatever you have. And it might be, instead of spending thousands of dollars on an offsite storage thing, you might invest in a shed if it's really important to you to have on-site
Hmm.
storage, but at least it's on your property instead of
Right.
going somewhere.
Yeah,
That's not so
absolutely.
great for whoever's investing in storage, property, but since this is what I'm here to talk about, that's what I'm gonna end up saying.
Well, the reality is, unless you can go around and organize 300 million American households, I think that there's
Mm,
still going to be plenty of demand for storage units.
sure, sure.
And if the projections are correct that, that people are going to have to be buying smaller first homes
Hmm.
because of affordability, I do think
Sure,
for better or for worse, the storage unit business the model does seem sound for the time
sure,
being.
sure.
Well,
It's going to happen. I feel like that's the way with how we have built up in our culture with where we are now. You've got people from the Great Depression, you've got the baby boomers, and it was kind of like we had so little, so hang on to everything so
hmm.
that you don't lose out. And
Yep.
then you've got, we had so little, so how can we get so much more to be happy? But then we're
Hmm.
discovering, but then we're so overwhelmed by the amount of stuff, and we're
That's
not
right.
actually using a good portion of it. And so, yeah, my personal point would be very careful and have an end date for your storage if you're
Absolutely.
going to do a storage unit.
So
Yeah.
besides like, and I'm gonna wrap this up here with a
Sure.
couple of more questions. So besides like sentimental items, besides like clothing that you're just hanging on to, are there things that when it comes to the decluttering stuff, are there things that people other things beyond those that people tend to hang on to that you see often? That's like a hard thing for them to purge.
Paper's really tough.
Paper?
Paper. Paper's really hard for a lot of people. Um, Simply because there's often, what do I even do with it? How much do I even
Hmm.
need to keep?
Sure.
And there's this paralysis that sets in. And so often, and depending on what your life looks like, have you donated to things? Oftentimes you get a lot of paper that comes in the mail. It depends on your profession too and what you
Hmm.
do. And so the biggest thing that I would say with paper is you're not alone, but the reality of the world that we are living is we're moving towards, a lot of things are online now. A lot of information, rather than keeping, for example, like warranties and instruction manuals, you can look that up online now. And so often I'll come across manuals and things, and really, to be honest with ourselves, how often do we even look back to them? We don't.
Yeah.
We look it up online.
Yeah.
And so if you could apply it to that kind of thing for paper, I think that would help a lot of people be able to let go of things. Thinking through just general points of, can I find this information online pretty quickly? Can I find maybe an instruction video?
Hmm.
Is this, like bank statements, bank information? A lot of that is
Hmm.
online. So usually, like, having a bank statement is not needed. Now, there are really important papers, obviously, that you want to keep, but if you can form a system for the really important things and have a place for them to go rather than your kitchen counter,
Hmm.
that allows you to have the freedom from looking at paper. What if something important is in here?
Right.
And so a lot of the time I'll recommend to clients to have a fireproof lockbox, and that's where your social security goes, your
Hmm.
marriage, you know, your marriage license, your,
Hmm.
kids'
Voter
job
registration
records.
card. Yeah.
Yeah, all of those really important things, car titles, anything related to, you owning your house, like the mortgage papers, whatever that is. Oftentimes they're moving towards online. However, you're going to have those important papers.
Hmm.
My husband's an immigrant, so we have immigration papers, his proof
Sure.
of becoming an American citizen, those kind of things. And so if you can have those things set up where you know where they are and you can grab them, that takes off a huge burden where you're not worried about throwing out something important.
Yeah.
Same thing for, maybe they don't need to go in that lockbox fireproof situation. However, maybe they go into, a small set. This is like a 2 filing cabinet or 2 file boxes, where one is home, one is business. If you have your own business, for example, or maybe work related, or maybe if even it's one file drawer and it's like you've got, medical for family members, you've got home related, you've got, I don't know what the categories would be for the particular person, but those are things that I often see. So if you've got those important things that you need to refer back to, you've got a home for them.
Yep.
And then that way, when you're bringing your mail in, I often say we all get junk mail. So pull that junk mail in one hand and keep the keeps in the other hand. Toss that junk mail into the trash so it doesn't even end up landing on your counter or in your
Hmm.
drop zone. And then that way, you're only dealing with the things that are important.
Sure.
One last thing, since we're on paper, this may have been different than what you wanted, but a lot of the times, kid papers are huge and we want to hang on to them. Something I have found that is so helpful is having, again, like maybe a wall mounted cubby where quickly those school papers can go into, and you look at them at the end of the week. When it starts to get full, that's your key to go through it. And then you have a file box for each kid. I've done this for my kids, and there is a grade throughout their school year. There's like memories, there's baby, and it's a file. And what you can do is go ahead and put everything that you want to keep, the special things, into that file. At the end of the year, reset it, because there's always going to be those, ooh, let's keep 2 of these 100
Right.
graded papers instead
Yep.
of 10 bazillion of them, because, oh, they got a 100, I should hang on to that. But if you have 55 of them, it's okay if you just keep 5, because the end goal being it's all contained in one file box. And at the end of your kids' high school career, like grade school, high school, whatever, you can hand them in that box. They can look at it and you guys can enjoy it. Or the kid can go, oh, I don't really need to keep these, or mom can keep them at her house, whatever that might be. Everybody's got different goals, but if you've got one box where you can look in your free time and enjoy those memories, it's way better than 5 huge tubs of papers, which I have seen of the kid little things that come
Yep.
home and all those
Sure.
papers, and it's overwhelming and you do not enjoy it and becomes such a burden and something that's terrible, rather than being able to enjoy those fun memories and things.
Yeah. For
So
sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
paper being a hard thing for people, for
Paper's
sure.
a tough one for me, obviously in my line of work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Real estate actually has some very strict rules about that we have
Right.
to keep our records
Right.
for several years. There's all sorts
Right.
of things.
Right.
But everything can be digitized. And so that's what I
Mm-hmm.
try to do personally is I
Right.
try to digitize just as much as I can. I try to
Right.
get as many statements and whatnot, via email versus snail mail.
Right.
And that keeps me sane because I handle
Sure.
like
Sure.
98% of the paperwork in my household.
Sure.
And that's in addition to 100% of my work paperwork.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I can get buried.
Right.
I'm actually buried right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's
Right.
just, it's not stuff that is like super actionable. It's just stuff that needs to be, I need to figure out a place for it
Sure.
and to make sure I'm keeping what I need to keep and acting on what I need to act and then
Right.
getting rid of what I can get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
But that can sometimes be a tricky
Right.
decision even for me.
Right.
Um,
And that's just an example of it's specific to the client, right? I'm not a realtor,
mhm.
so I don't need to keep all of this paperwork. You are. And so that's something that will just need to take up space somewhere, or
Yep.
you decide to do the digitizing option as well. So, it's just everybody's different. And so you look at, well, what are your limitations? What are your requirements for you and what you need to do, from a legal standpoint, all of those kind of things.
Yep.
Um, so,
So and we might end on this. We'll kind of see where this goes.
sure.
But so
Mhm.
we had talked about off air that sometimes you run into clients that are concerned, about you coming in with judgment about their
Sure.
home. Maybe it's a very cluttered home, maybe it's a hoarder home, whatever. Um, what do you say to them? What is your
Mhm.
response if someone is just like, I'm scared to have an organizer in my home because my home is a mess.
First, I say, don't worry, I'm a professional kind of thing. And I think that that's funny because I mentioned earlier on, I started this business out of high school, and it's just been something that there's not a school for this. It's kind of a learned talent
Hmm.
over time, learning with different people. And so the first thing I would say is, please be comfortable with me. Don't worry, I'm not coming in to attack you and make you feel awful. And oh my gosh, how are there dirty dishes in your sink? I have dirty dishes in my sink. Okay. I think I've got dirty dishes in my sink right now. I don't know. So there's a difference between real life and then wanting to, be able to have it maintained. And
For
so
sure.
I respect people a lot for bringing me in because I'm coming into your personal space and I don't take that for granted. I want to honor privacy and I want to respect you. And I think it's very admirable to have somebody where it's like, this is not in my wheelhouse. I don't know what I'm doing. So I need somebody to help me who does this and has the brain for it. And so I respect people a lot for bringing me in. I want them to know please don't feel like I'm just over here judging you and thinking you're a terrible person, because usually I'm really just looking at, ooh, this is a fun puzzle for me because how can I make this work for you? How
Yeah, for
can I make
sure.
this feel happy? How can I help you meet your goals and accomplish what you want so you can enjoy your space
For sure.
and take back and not feel overwhelmed every day, And so that would be just, please feel, don't be afraid of me. I'm not going to bite you. And so, and it's just like, it's a high honor because I told you, sometimes within 30 minutes of being in your house, I'm in the underwear drawer and I'm like sorting things, and I'm not going to do that for everybody. It's the express permission. Yes, you can go in there. Hey, please do. But just being comfortable, and I value that. And I respect the person for bringing in help. So,
How long? This is a question I just thought of when you were talking about that. Like, how
sure.
long does it take for you? Like, if someone does hire you, like,
Mm-hmm.
how long? How much time are you spending with them, helping them to
Sure.
declutter, organize all of that?
Ooh, it really depends on the client because there's a lot of factors that go into organizing a space. And it depends. Are you wanting help with just your master closet? Do you want help with the whole house? Do you want
Hmm.
help over time with things?
What are most
Is
people
this just
asking for generally?
most people, it's usually a closet or a kitchen.
Okay.
Those are kind of the highest, and happen to be my favorite things to do too. Definitely closets. Closets are my favorite. But just, helping to go through, I have some clients that I help, and we do resets throughout time because you can set up a system, but your needs change over time. Your kids grow, your wardrobe might change due to a job change and how formal you need to be, those kind of things. And so I'll come in and do a little 3-hour reset. I have one client, I go, maybe every couple months, and we just reset their house. And a lot of the systems we put into place, they're there and they're working and they're able to maintain, but sometimes they just need a Stephanie day. I've got a client, they say we need a Stephanie day.
It
And so we'll
kind of like people that have a cleaner come every few months to deep clean.
Yeah. But it's putting things away. Often it's like right before the cleaner comes so that we reset so the cleaner can do their job because they're not picking things up and putting them in weird places.
Yep.
And so just helping to reset, having that body double. I'm usually the one who people can do it, but it's that focus and staying on task and how do I accomplish it at the end. And so as far as a project goes, I typically work in like a 6-hour package of organizing time because I've found that's usually a good way to touch on at least one project. So, but it depends on how much stuff there is, how quickly the client can make decisions. Some people are super quick decision makers and we can go. Some people take a long time and there's a lot of stories and there's nothing wrong with that, but it does take a long time. So I would typically, like a regular medium-sized kitchen, if you're, reworking it, typically around 6 to 10 hours. If there's a walk-in pantry, that's a little bit more timing. Usually like one person in a closet, around 6 hours can happen. But if it's like a master closet with 2 people, that could be more like 12 hours because depending on how much, if I'm there from start to finish kind of thing. Now, if the client tries on things and sorts through in between when I'm there, that can obviously take less time that I'm there. But I'd generally say, hey, let's just start with, 6 hours and then we'll see where we land. And usually we can move on. And sometimes it will go so much quicker and then we'll start on a different project. But I'm usually pretty good on looking at an area and saying, let's start here. We go from start to finish. And then we can branch out and start to do something else. But what that does is when you can get those quick wins and you start to see the visual progress, you've got almost like a positive snowball effect where you start to say, oh, this makes sense. Oh, I see the process. And then clients are able, this is the cool thing, they're able to say, oh, this is how it works. Okay, I can start to do this. Or my favorite is where you start with, say, in the kitchen and you've arranged that junk drawer. And then as you come across other pairs of scissors throughout the house in weird spots, you know where those scissors go and you have a place for them. And so I love the process and I love working with people and helping them figure out what works for them. And it's just the coolest part is seeing somebody get excited and they go, oh, I know where this is. This is amazing. One final thing that has been really funny I have found is oftentimes like cleaning out a pantry or something, people usually have like reusable bags. And they always seem to end up in the pantry, which would make sense. That's where food is. But if you think about the usage of reusable bags, if you were to keep them in a cooler in the back of your car, usually when you need those reusable bags, it's when you're at the store and you want to load them up to take them back home. And so if they're in your car, you're able to use them for the purpose that they're intended for. And you have them and you don't have to worry about remembering to pull them out before you go grocery shopping. Because what if you ended up with a canceled appointment and you have an extra hour and you're right by the store? Then you can go. If you have a cooler, you can throw the cold stuff in there and that buys you more time so you can accomplish that while you're already out and about because you kind of thought ahead a little bit and changed around where you were storing it based on your needs and how you would use it.
For sure. So, yeah, I've run into that myself where it's like, I need to make a quick little run to the grocery store and you have to pay extra for the bags and a lot of these stores now and and I don't have anything to store my stuff. So
it's a funny little thing, but so I had a client text me and she was like, oh, I had it and it worked. This was amazing. And it just made my day because it's like the little things that you can tweak and kind of do and then it works and it starts to flow and you start to just the mental load being taken off from thinking ahead a little bit and kind of working with what you're already doing. I just love that feeling that it ends up giving people and that makes me really happy.
Absolutely. Well, we've gone for about an hour, which is for whatever reason is like whenever I do these interviews, they always go like exactly an hour and it doesn't matter how much I try to make it not take that long or whatever, they just do. But Stephanie, you've been great. Thank you so much, for sharing all of that. And I hope you get some business out of this. Do you want to tell the
Great.
listeners where, or the watchers, whatever, where they can find you? And of course, your
Great. Yeah.
information will be in the show notes as well.
Great. Thank you, Stan. This has been really fun. I've really enjoyed it too. Yes, my business is A Time to Organize. My website is the number 2 organize.com. And you can check out my process before and afters there. There's links to Facebook and Instagram, just where you can follow along and see the updated work. And then my phone number, feel free to give me a call, shoot me a text, 864-884-5417.
And that'll be in the show notes.
Be in the show notes.
Don't pull over your car and write it down. You can just look it up.
That may have been a shameless just drop of information, but there you go.
That's great.
You did say, how can you get in contact with me?
I did.
So there you go.
I did. Absolutely.
Yeah, but thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for listening. That was Stephanie Worinkeng with A Time to Organize. Please reach out to her if you have any decluttering, organization, staging needs, anything like that. She is, by the way, I'll just say, with regard to the judgment, the concern about being judged, Stephanie is one of the nicest people you will meet. She will not judge you. So you don't need to worry about that. But thank you guys for watching and listening. Please leave a rating, review, comment, any of those things. I would appreciate it. And my contact information and Stephanie's contact information is in the show notes if you need to reach out to either of us for your real estate buying or decluttering, staging, organizing needs. That's where you can go to find it. So please do that. Thank you guys for listening, and we will talk again next time.